Have you ever wondered what dating with herpes actually is like? Because in this video, I want to break down everything from how I got back into dating and how you can as well, some of the craziest reactions to my disclosures I've ever heard, and how you can be unfazed by someone's reaction, and how you might actually be able to use your herpes diagnosis to improve your dating life. I know it sounds crazy, but let me start at the beginning. My name is Christopher. I got genital HSV2 in September 2020, and I got back into dating, I would say 2 or 3 months after I was diagnosed. Yeah, it was scary, but the process that I went through at the time didn't seem so monumental and crazy, but it's the exact process that I turned into my coaching program that I've used with over 100 coaching clients to rid shame, make disclosure effortless, attract a loving partner. And essentially, the first thing I ever did post-diagnosis, when I felt sad, scared, afraid, no one's gonna date me, everyone's gonna judge me, I'll never find a girlfriend ever again, was I got properly educated. So as soon as I got diagnosed, after a little bit of the shock wore off and after I was dealing with my pain and itchiness and ruminations and lying in bed thinking my life was over, I went online and I tried to find reliable sources for prevalency, transmission, how do my outbreaks work, how do I reduce my risk of transmission, what are some of the other things about herpes, why is there a lack of testing. I basically sought out extremely reliable sources after I picked through all the nonsense sources online, the Reddits and the armchair doctors, and really trying to get a good idea as to how to control my own diagnosis, how to understand it better, and how I can communicate that with my future partners when they are inevitably going to have questions. So the first step I ever did was get properly educated about herpes, and that's step number 1 in my coaching program. Now, step number 1A or B is detaching from the herpes stigma. So I've always been someone that questions everything. You know, why is water wet? Why is the sky blue? Why do we always pursue peanut butter instead of broccoli? And why do we get so addicted to video games and heroin and all of these things? Probably shouldn't say the H word, to get demonetized. I'll probably blank it out. Doesn't matter. I always had questions, and I always was wondering, like, where did the herpes stigma come from? What's it about? And I looked into it. If you haven't already read the article, How Herpes Became a Sexual Boogeyman from Slate Magazine, go read it. Search on Google, give it a read, give it some thinking. You're probably going to detach as quickly as I detached. I realized that the herpes stigma was simply based around shaming sex. Now, I had slept with 5 people and had sex 13 times in my life, and I got herpes. Maybe 5 is a lot, maybe 5 is a little. In terms of that, I realized from the get-go that, like, I don't necessarily know if I fit the label that comes along with a herpes stigma. And I'm probably not going to hold on to that and take whatever it says as truth. I don't feel like I'm dirty or disgusting or I slept around or I made a mistake. And at the beginning I did. But I was learning to, like, is my truth more important than what the stigma tells me to believe? I think that's true. So the step number 1 of how I got back into dating was I realized that, like, this could happen to anybody, and I have a very good understanding now that I've accepted the fact that I have herpes. Let's move forward. And that's the first tip I'll give everybody is, like, you're going to accept your diagnosis, whether it's today or whether it's in 5 years, or you're never going to accept your diagnosis. So what I want you to do right now in this video is don't accept it. Tell me today and tell yourself today, and even leave a comment, when are you going to accept it? Sorry, no, not when are you going to accept it. Are you going to accept it? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, you're going to accept it today. If the answer is no, X the video, watch a different video right now. Because I'm telling you right now, the sooner you accept the fact that you're going to accept your diagnosis, the sooner you can move forward. The more you put it over here and deny it, the longer it's going to take for you to eventually do the work that has to be done. Okay? The next step on how I got back into dating was I remembered who I was pre-diagnosis. And oftentimes people will get diagnosed with herpes and they will basically assume there is a life before herpes and a life after herpes, and those two people are totally different. And you may feel mentally like they're different people, and I'll tell you right now that your mental state, your identity is actually going to influence your habits and actions, thoughts and beliefs. If you believe you're a different person and you're unworthy of love and there's no point in trying, you're probably not going to go to the gym, even if like you all literally are the same person. So you're not going to go to the gym. You're not going to get a haircut. You're not going to care about dressing well. You're not going to even feel as though you are the same person enough to even see your friends. A lot of people withdraw from friends and they're like, well, should I tell my friends? Or like, what if my friends ask me some questions? Or what if they ask me about dating? I can't go to a wedding anymore. You are the same person. And what I did is I remembered, okay, my symptoms are done. That was a fun month and a half of my first outbreak. I should probably go back to the gym. The gym is good for mental health. The gym is good for my self-image. It's good for my stress. It makes me feel like I am the same person I am, and it's a disciplined part of my life. It is who I am. I go to the gym. I'm not someone who tries to exercise. I went back to the gym. I saw my friends. And after I had like navigated through the first couple months of stressful outbreaks and weird bodily issues and an ingrown toenail and all this crazy stuff that happened, I had the perspective shift after having a little bit of confidence and after detaching from the stigma and after getting educated, where it was like, I don't know whether or not a girl is going to reject me. Now, I think the cheat code here, and this is something you can actually take, is you don't want to go out there trying to find your wife. So at the time, I was probably just looking to find some sort of casual relationship or something where I wasn't expecting to fall madly in love with a girl. And it was this sort of perspective that allowed me to say like, well, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to meet some people on dating apps, or I'm going to try to like, just date casually or put myself out there. And if a girl wants to get intimate, we'll deal with the disclosure at that point. So I think for me, I had this like initial, like nothing prevents you from physically putting yourself out there and dating and going on a date when it comes to herpes. I think that maybe there's a difference between men and women in terms of like the pressure involved with getting intimate or something. But as far as I'm concerned, women are the gatekeepers. And I was going out there and dating and thinking like, okay, let's meet a girl and let's see if she likes me. And let's see if she responds to my text and wants to have a first date. And then if we even like each other after the first date, maybe we'll have a second date. And then maybe eventually she'll say, I want to sleep with you. And then I'll disclose. So I think for me, it was like delusionally tricking myself into the habit of dating, which isn't even delusional. It's what you should do. And some of the things I do with my coaching clients initially is you write the idealized version of yourself, which you can do right now. Write the idealized version of yourself with herpes. So it would be like confident, able to disclose effortlessly, actively dating, educated, not concerned about someone's opinion, and you write that version of yourself down, and then every single day look at it, scan it, visualize it, imagine it in your head with vivid detail, and then act as that person today. So going back to what we were saying, if your idealized version of yourself dating with herpes is actively dating with herpes, when where you are right now is like not dating, that's going to actually trick you into stepping into the version of yourself that's going to have success. I know this sounds a little bit complicated, but it's true. It's like the version of you that isn't held back by herpes is dating. So put yourself out there today, and those actions will then change your identity in the long term. So I went out there. I met two girls. The first one had things with her ex, went back with him. The second one, I actually forget. Wait, who was the second one? I don't even remember, honestly. Wow. The third girl, which was in December 2020, we met on Tinder. And we had been talking for a while, and I was still having symptoms, and I was still kind of apprehensive. I had never had my first disclosure, and I want to share in this video how my first disclosure went. So I met this girl, and we were talking online, and we met up, and this was during COVID. We were pretty bored, nothing to do because everything's locked down. We just want some, just want to have some freedom. It was Lockdown in Canada, which lasted 17 years in COVID. Probably can't say the C word, I'll probably blurt that out too. 2 months go by. I wasn't very pushy. She was from Korea, kind of a reserved girl, but every girl isn't necessarily that reserved. She invites me over, okay, in February. It must have been the end of February. This was 2 months after we had still been talking. Now, I don't suggest waiting 2 months, but in this position, I had never known how to navigate dating with herpes. 2 months went by of talking and no intimacy. She invites me over and I'm thinking, oh no, this is bad. This is, okay, I'm gonna have to disclose my status. So we're in the midst of getting physical and I stop her and I say, hold on, I gotta tell you something. I get out my phone, Google Translate, hey, before things get physical, let's talk about sexual health. It's important to me. Wait, no, I didn't even say that. Sorry. What? That's what I suggest people do disclose now. Mine was sorry. Hi, I have the virus that causes herpes. I take medication to make myself safer. Let me know if you have any questions. I showed it to her. She was shocked, crazy, didn't even know what to do. We went to sleep. Nothing happened. Long story short, a couple weeks later, I showed her all the statistics about it. She wanted to learn more. We were intimate. She didn't get herpes. And then everyone who's already heard this story, she gets a cold sore a week later. I say, what's that on your lip? She says, I just get it when I'm sick, blah, 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 blah. Then I make fun of her. She's wearing a Band-Aid. We go on a ski trip. People have already heard this story, but essentially the first girl that I ever disclosed to had oral HSV1 and never told me, and I was mustering up the courage to disclose my genital herpes, and it wasn't even that big of a deal. Which leads to one of the biggest achievements or checkpoints in your diagnosis journey. It's your first win. The single biggest thing that's going to shift your perspective post-diagnosis is getting the one win. The first person who accepts you, the friend who still wants to talk to you, the disclosure that goes well, the first time you're intimate and you don't pass herpes along. These are proof that shatters your limiting beliefs that you can't date with herpes. So from that point forward, after my first successful disclosure, which was my first disclosure, I never lacked confidence again. Now, obviously, some baddie can reject me, but in terms of dating, I was never worried about being alone forever because I had proof that some regular, attractive girl would still date me. So that's my advice, is like, you got to go out there, put yourself out there. Don't give up if you get a rejection. Analyze how you rejected. Analyze how you disclosed. Was it the lack of confidence? Was it the lack of information? Was it not framing it from a mutual conversation? Was it a confession? Were you crying? Were you oversharing? Was it the person you were disclosing to? Were they the kind of like judgmental, ignorant kind of person? And really sort of assess how you can improve your disclosures next time. Now, after that initial disclosure relationship kind of like fizzled out because they moved away to Vancouver and I didn't really want something serious, I had a bit more success with dating. The same sort of tactic. And what I want to say right now, in terms of the way that I disclose after that first girl, is that it's always sort of been a public thing on my social media.
So I say that because shortly after this, which was March 2021, I started posting about my herpes status on TikTok in April 2021. So from there, everybody knew I had herpes.
Now, I know that it's not going to be applicable for everyone out there to have herpes coach on their social media platform and disclose that way and stuff. But I learned a few things that I can share with anyone who's watching this about how having my status public has improved dating or made dating easy. And I started realizing that, like, if enough people know your herpes status, which means you're able to talk about it easily, and it's not something you have to hide, and you're not concerned about judgment or shame or like it being used against you in rumors, then dating with herpes really just is meeting people, telling them you have herpes, gauging their reaction, managing it together, and either going forward or moving on to the next person. So after that first disclosure where I was saying, oh, here, read this, it's always sort of been something I just kind of shared with confidence, like, hey, I help people with herpes, or I talk about this online, or this is what I have. And it always comes across as like, this is what I have, I'm confident, take it or leave it. it's never had to be like a buildup of like, okay, we need to sit down and talk about this serious thing. And I really believe that it's like the energy that you put into your disclosures that are either going to attract or repel your partners. So I have gone on to have long-term relationships with the same similar disclosure, a few other relationships like that, and I've obviously been rejected for having herpes, but it's never been this like huge buildup. Oh my God, you should have told me first. Oh my God, I wasted all this time. You're a disgusting person. I've never really had that. And I also want to segue this topic into another topic, which is like the herpes stigma isn't worldwide. Now, I've said this before in recent videos. When I was dating in Bali, which was about 4 months, people in other parts of the world outside of Canada and UK and Australia and Ireland and USA, they don't know that they're supposed to shame you for herpes. So I want to make it clear that if you're watching this video and you're sitting in this bubble of ignorance and this bubble of stigma and this bubble of herpes is the worst thing ever, that's never really come along with herpes. It's come along with a stigma that's been created and manufactured and reinforced and brainwashed into all of us. And a lot of people out there in the world, and even in parts of Western countries where they're not necessarily brought up in the Western culture, is that they're not going to shame you for herpes. They might need to learn more to understand, to feel safe, but you may go out there and you may have your first disclosure if you've never done that before. And someone's like, well, what's herpes? What even is that? And then you could explain it to them, and maybe they're like, oh, that? Bro, why are you even disclosing that to me? Who cares? Or like, I get that too. So I want to make it clear that like, if you haven't watched the Why is Everybody So Afraid of Herpes video, go watch that one. Because going back to that step 1 of my coaching program, if you detach from the herpes stigma, you no longer feed your energy into it, and you no longer operate from the viewpoint that the stigma is correct, okay? When you view the stigma as like, this is nonsense, and you meet someone who believes the stigma, you look at them and say, you still believe this nonsense? And you're not going to be discouraged, offended, judged, and shamed. If anything, you're like, how do you not know this, man? It's 2025. Herpes is incredibly common. Most people have it. Type 1 and type 2 could both be passed sexually. These are all things that you should be getting educated on in that first step, which is what I did, which was like getting educated, detaching from the stigma, building your confidence back, and then framing disclosure as a mutual conversation about sexual health. If that all seems very complicated, I'm going to leave a link in the description box, a 3-step process video outlining that exact structure, or a book a call with me link. If you want to hop a call with, I can't even speak English. If you want to hop on a call with me and see if coaching is the right next step for you. So in terms of how people have reacted to my disclosures, I've dated people from North America, dated people from Asia, I've spoken to people from South America, and even parts of Europe, because I'm in sort of a multicultural environment. And you oftentimes don't have crazy, mind-blowing reactions. They're just like, hey, what is this? And there's even been times recently where I've had to disclose like relatively quickly before intimacy. And the important part there is you detach from the outcome that you're automatically going to date this person or you're going to be intimate. And if you're just calm and cool and collected and you're educated and you can make them feel comfortable having the conversation and you're not trying to be needy and forceful and convince them, you're going to have success dating with herpes. So I guess the title of the video is, what is dating actually like with herpes? It is honestly whatever you make it. And I want to touch now to sort of wrap everything up as to how your life can improve, how your dating can improve because of herpes. So there's a couple different ways we can go into this. Firstly, you either had a super amazing life, confident, flourishing, all these things to offer before you got herpes, and now you have herpes. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, I had all these things going for me, and then I got herpes. Well, no, you literally still have all of those things unless you throw them away and you have herpes. And those things are hopefully going to overshadow your herpes diagnosis. Nowadays, nobody really tries very hard. You can literally just maintain who you were as a person, your confidence and your fitness and your income and your social status and whatever it is that you had going on. And that's probably going to outweigh the fact that you have herpes. Or where I was, down in the dumps, in the trenches, not much to offer, 20-something guy trying to make it in this world. I haven't even reached my peak yet, in my opinion. And I said, damn, well, now I have herpes, my life is over. Or when you stop the pity party and you take responsibility for your life and you realize that some things are in your control and some things are out of your control, and you say, I'm going to make the best of my circumstances. I'm going to use this as a catalyst for growth to become the best version of myself because I genuinely want to be the best. Not for others, but for myself. And you can either put your energy into ruining your life or put the same amount of energy into improving your life. So getting in the best shape of your life, improving your confidence, making more money, like building a better social life, pursuing your dream goal, which was like, I'm going to move to Bali, live my dream life, help others with herpes eventually, and become someone where herpes isn't a deal breaker. And it's not in like a inferiority complex. It's like, I genuinely should improve my life. Why not today? And why not today for you? So you may find that whether you're in either of those two camps, your dating life can still be amazing post-diagnosis. Now, on the other side of things, let's say you're a guy or a girl and you've had your time wasted so many times by guys or girls who are not interested in you, or they waste your time, or you can't tell they're a judge of character from the get-go. What if you now disclose your herpes status to a guy and he turns out to be crazy, reacting like, oh my God, why would you tell me this? You're a disgusting person, get away from me. If they react like that, and I truly mean this, are you missing out on someone like that? Now, if your fetish and your kink is, I love abusive guys who badmouth me, then you're gonna miss out. But if you're out there and you're a woman watching this or you're a man watching this and you wanna find a loving, accepting, vulnerable, understanding partner who likes you for you and doesn't let things that are likely inevitable ruin a relationship, then your herpes status is then going to be used instead of this like, what would be the word? Like red flag. It would be used as this like filtering process to go out there and meet people. And as soon as you're able to find the person who aligns with those qualities, that's the kind of person that's going to react kindly to your diagnosis. So you're no longer wasting your time with guys who just want to use your body, or wasting your time with people who aren't mature enough to even engage in a respectful conversation about herpes. Because there's two sides of it. There's the, ew, get away from me, I already know everything about herpes and you're disgusting. And there's the, well, I don't know much about it, could you tell me more? And this is the kind of person that you want to be prepared for in step number one with getting educated about herpes. Because you might meet this great guy, oh, tell me more. And you're like, I don't know how it works. You got to go back, you got to educated, you got to understand how to communicate with your partners, because then this Princess Charming over here.
Princess Charming? What am I talking about? Back to the video.
Is going to reject you based on lack of information, not based on your herpes status. So, to summarize the entire video, in terms of how I got into dating, I got educated, I detached from the herpes stigma, I'm simply a human being with a common viral infection, I happen to have had sex, whoop-de-doo. I then aligned myself, my habits, actions, thoughts, and beliefs with the version of me that was confident, that was in shape, that was dating, that was able to talk about his status, even if it was scary at the beginning, with ease. So I'm this slowly aligning each and every day with this new person. I then disclosed my status, I had success. I realized that she didn't have the same cultural stigma that other people did, and that's okay. After that, I was able to maintain relationships, not necessarily need to use a condom based on my partner's reactions, never give anybody herpes, protect other people, basically just date with herpes and have short-term and long-term relationships. But I've also been rejected. I've also had people who were turned off or who just didn't want to take the risk, and that's okay. That's part of dating. So I was able to detach from every single possible outcome, so I'm not getting heartbroken when someone says no, or heartbroken when someone is like, why would you ever think I would date you if you have herpes? That's disgusting. I would never. I'm just like, okay, I'll see you in my DMs in 6 months when you accidentally get herpes from someone else. Hopefully not. And then I was able to use my diagnosis to improve myself to where my dating life actually is better than pre-diagnosis. And it's not to flex, it's to say that like your life doesn't have to end just because you get diagnosed. And if you are still struggling, whether it's been 25 years like my last coaching client, or whether it's been 5 years, whether it's been you getting diagnosed 48 hours ago, no one is hopeless and no one is helpless. And if you want to dive more into that 3-step process, getting educated, getting your confidence back, making disclosure effortless, check the description box or hop on a call with me via the second link in the description. I'll see you guys in the next video. Your life is not over.